Why I can't go back to how things were. I recently did a video on this channel, a bit of a life update about how my own life is changing, and I had an incredible response from you guys, and thank you first of all on that. And I thought I'd make this video specifically thinking about this idea of, can we go back to previous versions? Is it about transformation or is it restoration? I believe firmly that the only direction is forward. And in this video, I'm going to share some of my experiences of that in action, how my life has changed, how I have changed, and I'm no longer a previous version of myself, and why this gives hope, not just for me, but also for you as viewers. Guys, if you're new to this channel, my name is Dr. Alex George. I'm over 2.5 years alcohol-free. This video is an alcohol-free living channel, and it's all about improving your own life and maximizing your happiness. So if you haven't already, do subscribe to the channel, and please drop a thumbs up if you can. It helps us reach more people and ultimately help more people too. Let's start the video thinking about my career. So I practiced as a doctor from 2015. I started working at King's College Hospital in London, which is my dream hospital to work in. It was amazing. And then went to Lewisham Hospital to complete my what we call residency, foundation years as a doctor. And I stayed there, and I continued to work in A&E during the pandemic, post-pandemic, and so on, until eventually I got to the point where I stopped working in the hospital. And if you're new to the channel and don't know the backstory, effectively, I was an A&E doctor who became famous because I went on a certain show, and I went back to the hospital and started teaching about health and information and tried to share a bit of what it's like to be a doctor on the front line, as well as, taking you guys along with kind of lifestyle and things that I was doing. Then obviously the pandemic happened, and unfortunately, I had a big personal trauma where my brother died by suicide, which is about 5 years ago now. And I was like, I need to do something in this space. Funny enough, I'd already been doing a lot around mental fitness. I'd actually made a YouTube video like the week before, 2 weeks before, about mental health during the pandemic. But I felt I really needed to kind of devote my life to this now. And so that's what I did. And I think in that moment, even that, the day that he died, my life, and I was this certain person before, and my life and the person that I was changed literally in that moment. And I often say this, I can never go back to the version that I was. And obviously things like grief is a very extreme version of change. Like a lot of people, if you're watching this and you've lost a mother, a parent, a brother like I have, a friend, a pet even, you'll know that when these things happen, there is an element of change that is permanent. You kind of become a different person. It's not that at the core, these values or principles or this sense of character of who you are, it doesn't still exist. It does, but it changes, and it will not go back, which is really interesting. And I think only when you experience something like that, it becomes so obvious. But there are many ways that we change that aren't necessarily about the big moments or the big traumas in life. It's about the little, either micro changes or micro experiences, micro traumas, this kind of collection of our experiences that slowly changes who we are and effectively creates us or makes us into this kind of new version of ourselves. Now, I firmly believe, and I've said it before, I think on the YouTube channel, that pain comes from holding on to something that you need to let go of. Whether that's alcohol, whether that's a relationship, whether it's an addiction or something, whether it's a bad friendship group, whether it's a job that you actually hate. It's when you hold on to this thing that you should let go of that it causes friction in our life. And if you don't believe me, really ask yourself that question. When I was last in pain, was I able to let go of this feeling? Was I holding on to it? And I've quoted this in a speech I did at Exeter University. No, it wasn't Exeter University, it was at Cardiff University when I had an honorary degree this summer. And I quoted the Tao Te Ching, where it says, by letting go, it all gets done. And it's a beautiful idea that by allowing life to be and allowing the fluidity of change, allowing things to happen as they're meant to be, that we let go of suffering, which is very important. And if you think about the medical points where I started this idea, I was working, my brother passed away, and I tried to go back to the hospital and just carry on as I was. And I remember sitting in A&E and I was just trying to work there, and I was trying to see patients, and I was just trying to keep on going. And I realized that something had fundamentally changed in myself, and something had changed in how I felt about this job. Now, yes, of course, that was a big trauma to have happened, but I think it was happening gradually over time. I almost think it was like the straw that broke the camel's back, because during the pandemic, I bled my blood. I worked hard, as many people did. It's not just me, it's hundreds of thousands of people that were kind of up against it and were working through it. But I think that whole experience was slowly changing me and making me kind of awaken and question, like, I love what I'm doing here. I've done my bit here, but is this what I want forever? And I think eventually you get to the point where you stop and go, okay, it's time now. Had I have stayed in A&E and forced myself to keep working for year after year, I think I would have ended up extremely miserable. But I'm really glad and I'm proud of myself that I recognised at that point that, I've bled my blood towards this cause. I feel a desire and a purpose to go in a different direction. I feel that I want to do something different with my life. By allowing myself to go in that direction, I avoid a lot of suffering. And I was able to then build into this space. And the point is, I don't think that I can go back. And people often ask me about medicine, could you go back? I cannot ever say never. It would be ridiculous for me to say never because, it'll be like a year later I'm back doing something else. But in the way that I was there before and how I existed before and what it was like before, I cannot go back. I wouldn't go back to Lewisham Hospital and work in A&E in that way. If I was to go into medicine again, it wouldn't be going backwards, it'd be moving forwards. It'd be moving to a new role, into a new position, in a new way. And that's how I'd see it. It would certainly not be going back to either a previous version of myself or to a previous role. Do I think it'll happen? I think it's very unlikely I'll ever go back to medicine. I think that if I stop doing all of this stuff, it all ends tomorrow, I'll do something different. I'll use the skill sets that I've learned along the way. I've learned a lot of stuff. A lot of different stuff about, obviously health, marketing, business, campaigns, charity work, health, communication skills, like just listing stuff that I've learned about. And all those things I can take elsewhere. And that's probably what I do, because there's something about moving forward that's really important. It's why I heard someone before quoting, like, you shouldn't go back to an ex, unless you both worked on your thing, you've moved forward. If you go back to the same situation in the same environment and nothing has changed, then the same thing will happen again. For something like that to work, you actually both have to have moved forward for you guys to come together and move forward together. And everyone knows that makes sense. If you go back to the same environment, the same habits, the same thing happens again. It's like a friendship group, right? So if you're hanging out with a friendship group and when you get together, you'll get too drunk and you kind of do things you regret. If you stop doing that for a couple of months, but you still go back to that friendship group and they haven't changed, then nothing will change. And I think that's really, really important. And that causes so much resistance and suffering when we try and be a version of ourselves that we're not. So do I think I'd go back to medicine? No. I think in reality, I'm going to move forward. Now, I started talking about this a little bit already. This idea of, family and grief changing us, relationships changing us as well. I believe that as we move through life, lots of things happen. Things pull you in different directions, things lift you up, things push you down, things chip at you, things build you up. And all of this changes this shape that you are as you move through life until you end up this final product, I guess, at the end of it. And that product, then you die. So you get there at the end. So it really is about the journey. But the point is that we are shaped by all of our experiences. And there is no doubt that our family, experiences of grief and loss and relationships, either good or bad, shapes us. And I again believe that after, for example, an experience of grief, you're not going to go back to the previous person. But also a relationship. If you had a relationship that was very difficult, maybe it challenged you about versions of yourself, maybe it made you look at yourself and think about where you need to improve, you're not going to go back to that version of yourself. Well, you don't want to. You want to move forward. And that's really important. And therefore, I fundamentally believe that it really is about transformation, not about restoration. When Cleo died, there's no way that I was going to go back and restore, because he's not going to come back alive. I can't restore this previous version or just erase the experience of memory. And I think by trying to do that, it causes so much pain. And I believe actually with grief, the reason a lot of people get really stuck with grief is that they try to do the wrong thing. They're trying to stop grieving, or they're trying to get over the person's death. And that is the fundamental problem. You will never get over the death of someone important to you, period. End of. I don't care what anyone says, it will always matter to you. And my question is, do you want to? Do you want to get over the death of your mother or your best friend or your brother? Do you want to be like, I don't care anymore, I'm over it? You don't. You don't want to do that. What you want to be able to do is feel grief and feel the love and feel that beauty of pain, that love that you have for them, but in a manner that allows you to also live your life, that it becomes something that guides you, a North Star in your life, rather than something that consumes your life. And that is why it's about transformation, transforming yourself into this new version that carries this experience and moves forward anyway. Let's talk about this in the context of alcohol, because people often ask me, do you think you'll go back to drinking alcohol? And I've told you guys that I cannot be certain, but as I feel today, I don't have an interest in drinking, and each day I seem to feel the same way. So let's see. I don't know, but it's how I feel right now. One thing I know for sure is that if I did go back to having alcohol, it would be in a completely different way to what I do now. I'm not saying this because I have any temptation to do, but I'm trying to play it through, because I can't unlearn what I've learned. I have learned so much through sobriety in the last few years. It has changed me immeasurably, and therefore I wouldn't want to go back to that version. If I was to drink, it would be extremely mindfully and extremely rarely. To be honest, I don't want to drink at all, so I don't have any temptation. But I fundamentally feel that those kind of experiences do change you. When and how I think alcohol can cause so much pain for people, not just through the effects of alcohol and so on, is when you're holding on to this version of yourself that you're not letting go. And I think this causes a lot of trouble for people when they quit, is that they go, oh, well, I don't want to be boring, or I'm going to miss that life, or I'll miss those nights out, or sometimes it was good fun. It's holding on to this version of yourself. You have made a decision that you believe your life is better without alcohol. So let that old version of you go. It's fine. You can have those memories. You can't go back to university, can you? You can't be like, I'm 34 now. I can't be like, I'm going back to being 20 years old at university. I'm not going to hold on to that. I'm going to look back and go, oh, that was a time in my life. Let it go. I'm now stepping into this new version of myself. And by letting go of that older drinking version of you, you create so much room for joy in your life. Let go of that identity. I think one of the best things you ever do is just to let go of it, leave alcohol in the past and move forward. And the thing is, when I actually think about it with alcohol, it really does affect your ability to transform and move forward in all areas. It's not just about the not drinking, but if you're grieving, if you're wanting to start a new job, if you're wanting to start a new relationship or leave a relationship or whatever it might be, it is keeping you kind of stuck. And I think it's a very common thread throughout my whole life. And my experience is that when I actually took away the alcohol, all of a sudden the cogs started moving and everything else fell into place. And I'd love to hear in the comments what you think about this, because people often say, well, what's the impact of stopping drinking? Are the hangovers, or you spend less? But really the deep stuff is you find who you are, you transform into the person you're going to be, and then suddenly everything that was holding you back is dropped off. And that is a very liberating feeling to experience. I've heard this quote by Yogi Berra, who's an American baseball player. And the quote is, when you come to a fork in the road, take it. And I guess it's that idea that when we approach a situation where you could go left or you could go right, go with it, go with that flow, make your best decision and allow that experience to unravel. It kind of is very similar to the letting go quote I mentioned earlier, in the sense that, by holding on and trying to be certain and trying to keep things as they are and prevent change, that you are, storing up suffering really. But when you allow yourself to go, well, hang on, this road has been great. It's been an experience along the way. I've come to a situation where there is time to make a decision, and also there is change. You need to just take that. It's like coming to the end of university and going, well, I wish I could just do 3 or 4 more years. You can't. So when you leave, you've got to decide now, where do I want to live? What do I want to do? What's the next step in my experience? And the best thing you can do is to really go with that, roll with it. Don't try and control things too much. Allow things to be, allow things to ebb and flow. I don't know whether you guys are spiritual or not, but the saying, what's meant to be will be. And I think there is an element of that you've got to allow things to be as they are. So my closing reflections are that I think this is about transformation. It's not about restoration. Allow yourself to be who you are today. Let go of the past. Meet the experiences head on and kind of go with your gut and go with your flow. I mean, there's so much talk about the power of gut feeling and gut instinct. I believe your gut often knows the correct answer. Go with your gut. And I think it's quite rare that your gut will let you down. So this is a bit of a snippet into my experience, a bit my thoughts around transformation and change. Let me know in the comments what you think. Perhaps any experiences you've had where you've kind of had to go, okay, I need to let go of that version of myself, or this is a period of change for me. What does that look like? And any advice you have for people in the comments as well, of course. Thank you so much as always, everyone, for following this page. It means a lot to me. I'm going to see you again in the next video. Do subscribe if you haven't already, and give me a thumbs up. Goodbye.